everyone, and welcome to Meowmix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven.
My name is Jerry.
It is time. It's been a long time since we've had a Carolina Panthers game on our TVs, and I guess out in the real world as well. Although I'm not going to go to it, but we've got one coming up just a couple of days. Jerry, Carolina Panthers preseason game number 1 heading our way, and Bryce Young is not going to play.
Yeah, Bryce Young. I don't think the O-line's going to play. Like, this is going to be a Jack and Jake show, which is very... this gives me reminiscence of when Cam went down and we were playing like Kyle Allen, Taylor Heineke, and I feel like that's what this game is. Luckily, it's preseason and the wins and losses don't matter.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have... Plummer and Luton, I guess, who was here a little bit last year, but
Jake Plummer, Jack Plummer and Jake Luton. That's Jake and Jack.
Jake and Jack. So I mean, I don't know. From what I've heard, Plummer's looked pretty good in camp so far. So I mean, it'll be something. But yeah, this a little bit of shine for me off of this game. I was hoping at least one series with Bryce. The starters, all of them, other than, guys that are injured or whatever. But yeah, I mean, well, we're here to talk about the little bit about the preseason game. We'll kind of discuss that kind of towards the end, a little bit of a preview. But training camp's been going on for a couple of weeks now. By the way, I was out last week. Thank you, Jerry, for going solo on our week 1 recap there. I listened to it. It was great and very informative. So, but I am back. I was dealing with a touch of the COVID, just a little bit of the COVID. So I couldn't really get through a sentence without coughing, let alone an entire podcast. So, but I'm back. I'm mostly healed. Hopefully I won't be coughing too much during this podcast. But let's talk a little bit of training camp here, Jerry. I mean, we got a few things to talk about. Some of them not that great.
No, honestly, the injury bug is sneaking up in Panthers camp, and I don't like it. Starting off, Andy Dalton injured his quad and likely will be out for a couple weeks. Hopefully, he'll be back before the start of the season. I have no problem with Plummer or Luton being on the roster as a third-string quarterback, but I really don't want them starting games, especially at the beginning of the season, just in case something happens.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
And Andy Dalton's a vet. Like he doesn't really need camp, like some of the other guys. But kind of a bummer. But hopefully Andy will be back by the start of the season because, like you said, if Bryce goes down or something happens, we don't want Jake or Jack leading our squad out there in real games. So, but as we kind of mentioned, the Panthers did sign Jake Luton. Who was on the team last year for a bit, and I think some practice squad as well. So just kind of that emergency fourth quarterback just in case, right? Like I wouldn't expect him to be a meaningful member of the squad.
Hey, I mean, this is his opportunity. I mean,
yeah,
he's familiar with Canales from Seattle. So, hey, show you could play. Maybe you can make a roster, whether it's here or somewhere else. I mean, same for Plummer. You want to go out and show it. And a lot of these guys will be doing that. They're not trying to instigate the offense like Bryce Young is. They're trying to make plays to look good to make rosters.
Yeah. So and we'll talk about it a little bit, but Jake and Jack, like this game is extremely important to both of those guys. I mean, Plummer is not guaranteed a roster spot. He's a late round pick.
No, he was an undrafted guy.
Undrafted guy, all right. So even definitely not guaranteed a roster spot. But yeah, so this is going to be a big game for both of those guys to kind of show what they can do. But yeah, so that's kind of that little piece of news there. What we got next here, Jerry?
My next bit is about signing Jake Luton, but I think we've talked about that.
Yeah, I hit that bullet. Next bullet.
Xavier Leggett had a lower leg injury. X-ray and MRI came back negative and is considered day-to-day. I don't expect to see him on Thursday, which really makes me sad.
No.
Yeah, injury bugs, man. I mean...
Yeah, this one was a scary one because, when it first happened, all the news was, X-ray's negative, but they're doing an MRI, and I don't know. Just given the Panthers' history and everything, even that we've got going on so far this season, I just feared for the worst. But thank goodness, it looks like he hopefully will be ready for the beginning of the season. I mean, day to day, we've seen day to day turn into week to
Mm-hmm.
week, turn into long term, IR. So hopefully it doesn't happen. But
It,
that it would just be par for the course at this point. I mean, it's so unfortunate.
yeah.
But yeah,
And speaking about day to day getting longer, DJ Wanham still hasn't practiced. He was expected to be back towards the beginning of the camp. He had a setback, and now it's up in the air whether he's going to be ready for the start of the season, and that's a huge spot because there's not much depth behind him.
I mean, he might have already lost his job to DJ Johnson from everything that we've heard. DJ Johnson's been having a great camp, and
Yeah,
he's getting those reps because DJ Wanham is not out there.
and this is
So,
going to be a big game for him. I think. I think
mhm,
he will get some playing serious playing time, and if he splashes, I think you're right. I think you have to let DJ Johnson and DJ. Wow, the DJs. That's not
yeah,
gonna
the
get
two
confusing.
DJs,
We have
right?
Jake and Jack and DJ and DJ. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, Wanham, again, I would expect when he's fully healthy, he'll probably take over the starting job. But if DJ Johnson comes in and just looks really, really good in all preseason games and continues to look good in camp and likely will get playing time in the regular season just because you're not going to want to throw Wanham out there 100% of the snaps,
Yeah.
when he hasn't been practicing. That's great for him. And I hope that it works out
Well,
because that would just be another player on that edge that we desperately need playmakers for.
exactly. That's what I was about to say. I mean, the big question was there is no depth behind him. I mean, Clavion, Chason, and DJ Johnson, Omari Bar. No, none of
Yeah,
those were proven, and yet if he
right.
comes out and he looks good, I mean, it's a good piece to have. It is a
Yep.
good piece to have another rotational guy, even if he's not a stud, being able to a solid player out there.
Yeah. A couple more notes here that I don't see on the list. Jonathan Brooks, they talked about him probably not being available until the third or fourth week of the season. Um, Not a huge surprise,
No.
right? That's something we kind of discussed where it was going to be pushing it for him to be ready at the beginning of the season anyway, and certainly carrying the load. So yeah, I would expect probably into late October before we see Jonathan Brooks out there on the field. And again, they knew that drafting him. They knew that he was coming off this ACL and he's got to get healthy. So
Uh, let's get him
not
healthy before we rush
right.
him out. I mean that draft pick could be a steal, but you have to play that situation correctly.
Yep. And then Sam Franklin, I think, broke his foot. So he is out for an extended period of time as well. So unfortunate there because that secondary just not deep, right? Not deep at all.
Well, speaking of that, I was listening to Mike Kay.
Mhm.
Is he from the Charlotte Observer now? I believe.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
Mike Kay was saying that the safety position is honestly looking like the strongest position in defense. Like that, they look really solid. At Xavier Woods and Jordan Fuller really getting, and Nick Scott. They said has also really shined.
I
So
think they just signed another safety today too off of waivers.
they did.
We'll
It was
yeah.
a Broncos guy. He's
Yeah,
24
yeah,
years old. He's played with uh
yeah. Evero. Yeah.
I was gonna call him Obata, F.A. Obata, and I was like, that's not his name.
Yeah, he was with Evero. I think he had some injury concerns or something and just sort of lost his spot on the
Mm-hmm.
roster. But so hey, I mean they continue to bring guys in for that secondary. So but yeah, safety wasn't as much of a concern as corner,
Yeah.
with the depth and everything. So but that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Okay, well, let's move on. Let's move to some more maybe positive stuff. Let's talk about some of these camp battles and maybe some of the
Steven, I
surprises
wanna
that
I
we're
wanna
seeing.
hold off. We are a Carolina Panthers podcast. We're not positive.
Well,
After
let's
the
try
past
to
three
be.
years of getting
I
rubbed
know.
down, we're
I
just
know.
rubbed
I
into
know.
the dirt.
And not
But
only that, but like this season is starting off with all these injuries and everything. It's like just really It's really unfortunate.
Wh-
But I'm starting to see a lot of the Twitter, uh, you know, folks that were just weeks ago saying that the NFC South's wide open for the Panthers. Now saying I think it might be like a 5-win season,
Yeah, I mean,
right? I mean, now that we're seeing these guys and we're seeing what happens when one guy goes down, there's just nobody behind him,
yeah.
right? I mean, so this is the reality of this year's Panthers. Unfortunately, we're just hoping to see growth and
Protect
setting it
Bryce.
set us up for 2025, basically. But
Hmm.
speaking of the future of the team, there are some camp battles that we're going to talk about here, and we'll kind of kick it off with maybe one of the ones that most people are most excited about.
Yeah, it was the wide receiver 3 spot. We had it Xavier Leggett versus the field, and we need to change this to Jonathan Mingo versus the field, as Jonathan Mingo is probably the star of the camp so far, I would say.
I would agree. Certainly, the offensive MVP so far of camp, from everything we've seen and heard, he has looked really good. He's listed as a starter on the unofficial depth chart, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But yeah, Leggett, unfortunately, with that injury, and then even before, wasn't really standing out as much as Mingo. But yeah, Mingo really seems to have come into camp and into this season ready to prove something, and it
Good for
shows.
him.
Yeah.
I heard an interview with Bryce Young, and he was talking about him, just that he looks so much confidence. He's running his routes a lot more confident. And that, to Dave Canales' credit, he brought that up in a meeting, that
Hmm.
that's what they're doing. They're trying to build the confidence. When they are more confident, they run faster, they hit harder, they play better.
Yeah.
So, and I think he has it right now, which is good. He didn't have
I,
it last year.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, and unfortunately I haven't been able to get out to camp that much, but from what I've seen from videos and everything, um, everything I see is a Mingo catch basically on
Mm-hmm.
offense. Like everything is going to Mingo or Deontay Johnson, but Mingo is kind of the guy that I just keep seeing over and over and over again making these plays. So, really excited about that. And yeah, again, just another position where if somebody steps up, suddenly things look a lot better, right?
Correct.
Because outside of Johnson and Thielen, like it was just a bunch of question marks,
Yeah,
right?
and Terrace Marshall Jr. is supposedly looking a lot better this year. I know that's
It's a low bar.
yeah, but so it's interesting.
Yeah.
I also like Deontay Johnson and Bryce Young supposedly are getting into a good rhythm out there. That
Yeah.
they're
I've seen a lot of Deontay Johnson versus JC Horn clips. They're facing off against each other a
good.
lot. And it seems like, one day one of them will have a big day, the other will have a big day, but they're testing each other, which is great. Good to see. But, it to me seems like Deontay Johnson might be getting the better of him more consistently than JC Horn's getting the better.
And
So
if
that's
it's
good.
man to man, that's not that
Right, right,
astronomical.
right. But you've got JC Horn, who's a shutdown corner. If your number one wide receiver's looking good against him, that's only good, right?
Correct.
Nothing against JC Horn, by the way. Like I think JC Horn's still going to be very good. But yeah, excited.
Moving on, Eddie P versus the thicker kicker. Pinero's listed as a starter, and like I said, I don't know if you said you listened, but from all accounts, Pinero's already won the job. Pinero has looked unstoppable. So
Yeah, Eddie P's looked really good. And Thicker Kickers looked really good too. And I think his name's Harrison. I don't
Mevis,
know. Mevis, yeah.
Mevis.
Um, he's looked good as well. So I hope this doesn't become one of those Harrison Butker situations where we've got two, standout kickers and we throw one on the practice squad. He's immediately scooped up by the Chiefs, and a few years later is the highest paid kicker in the history of the game because he's so good. But Eddie P's fairly young as well, and has been here and looks good. So I've maintained that I don't really care either way as long as we get the best one. And I think they're going to still alternate preseason games. So I think even though Eddie P's listed as the starter for this preseason game, it wouldn't surprise me if Mevis is the starter for next preseason game. So we'll see how that goes.
Uh,
Let's move on to the tight end battle. And unfortunately, this one is again
get
beset with injuries. We've got Tommy Tremble, who's been out, Ian Thomas, who just got hurt and is out, Jatavion Sanders, and we got to throw Jordan Matthews in there as well.
we have Felipe Franks too.
Yeah, I think Matthews is actually listed ahead of Sanders on the depth chart. Well, they
Okay.
might be listed. They might be listed together because
Uh,
we got
yeah.
two tight end ones listed on the depth chart. So Thomas, Trimble, and Thomas are listed as TE ones, and Sanders and Matthews is two.
Yeah.
But yeah, from what I understand, Matthews has looked pretty good in camp as well, and Sanders now with Ian Thomas getting hurt, we're seeing some more Sanders out there as well. I
It
saw him make a really nice catch the other day.
Yeah, that was just another report I was hearing is that Sanders is slowly coming around. That he's making these plays back now, and it sounds like he's starting to catch up a little bit. And uh, I'm looking forward to seeing it on Thursday night.
That's one of the positions I'm most excited to watch, especially if we get Sanders out there a lot. Jordan Matthews as well. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen him play in a real game. So, and it wasn't at tight end the last time I saw him play. So we'll see how that goes. But I would not expect Trimble or Thomas, and they may have already been ruled out for this preseason game. But I think
Yeah,
we're going to see a
I wouldn't
lot of
expect
Sanders.
them
Yeah,
to play this week. I mean, let's be real. I mean, it doesn't mean anything if you're injured or something. They're gonna sit him, and I think that's why they sat Bryce Young. He's not injured, but the O line, Damian Lewis is injured. Taylor Moton got a little banged up. At what point are you like, oh no, we're not putting Bryce out there against a patchwork offensive line.
right. I 100% agree with that. By the way, like if this O line is going to take a few more weeks to gel, then don't put Bryce out there under live fire.
No,
Just wait till week one.
yeah. They have the
I'm not.
Jets combined practice. I mean, that's
Yeah,
basically like a glorified preseason game, except you don't get to hit the quarterback.
right. Yeah, yeah. He'll get plenty of opportunities to work on timing and things like that in practice. So I'm okay. I'm fine with that. All right, let's move on. What's our next battle here?
Cornerback 2, Dane Jackson, I think, has it.
Seems like it. Yeah.
I, I wish there was more competition, but it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Again, eh, who's Deshaun Jameson? I've seen made a few plays in camp over the last few days, so wouldn't surprise me to see him look good Thursday night. But yeah, it's I think he's still listed as like a third stringer right now anyway. So I'm not sure that the coaches are seeing too much from him yet. But yeah, I mean it's Horn and Jackson as those starting corners, and then just a group behind them. I think it's probably whoever's the hot hand.
Yeah.
You know.
Edge rusher number 3, or number 2 now.
Yeah.
We've discussed this. DJ Johnson has ran with his opportunity, and we'll see how it looks. Because I expect to see him now. His running mate Clowney will not be seen. I would imagine. Can't imagine him.
No, but just as an aside, I've heard Clowney has looked really, really good in camp as well.
Yeah, me
So
too.
that is positive because I was wondering how he's going to look in camp, but he's looked really good. So that's really, really good news. And then finally, running back, and again, it looks like it's Chuba. He's got the number one spot on the depth chart. Sanders, I think, has looked good as well. It seems like both of them have looked good. Of course, Jonathan Brooks, as we mentioned, not practicing, is going to be out for a few weeks. You got Blackshear in there, so and then your boy Penny gone, retired.
Yeah,
So
I went over
yeah,
that.
yep, you did.
he,
You did.
he I think he saw the writing on the wall, looked around that room, and was like, "Man, I don't want to put my body through this right now. I'm
Right.
done."
Yep.
And that more power to you. I have no problem with someone saying that.
Yeah. But as of right now, it seems like Chuba's got certainly the lead in the clubhouse when it comes to that starting running back week one. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that.
Yep.
Any other camp battles you want to discuss before we kind of look at the depth chart?
No, not at all. Honestly, like
Okay.
this camp battles wasn't that. There wasn't that many of them. Like most of
Right.
these seem like pretty set in stone. Like the Dane Jackson, as much as I'm not all for it, I mean, it looks like that's the way it was going to be. I was hoping somebody could
Yeah. I
have
think
competition.
we were both hoping that they were going to make another move in free agency, which those guys are still all out there waiting to be signed. So who
They're
knows?
they're like, oh yeah, look at that. Oh, camp's 2 weeks
Right.
in. Give me one more week and I'll start signing.
There you go.
I don't
Yep.
want that.
Yep. Um. So yeah, but yeah, we talked about that in our first on our training camp preview. Is that a lot of these battles, there really was only two or three spots, and most of them were second string battles.
Yeah.
So and really, there's just no surprises on the depth chart, honestly.
No.
Trevin Wallace is listed as number one backup at linebacker, which is good, right?
Yeah.
Not a surprise, but good. We talked about Mingo being listed as a starter at wide receiver, but behind him, no real.
No. I mean, the wide receivers, second string, Terrace Marshall Jr., Amir Smith Marset, and Xavier Leggett.
Yeah,
I mean, I could easily see that being the wide receiver room.
easily, easily. Yeah, and really of those, I mean, only Liggett is probably guaranteed a roster spot, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say Smith Marset, just with his return ability, is probably the five, right? And then Marshall
Yeah.
has looked pretty good. He's got the body type and everything. He's probably your six, or vice versa. Swap those two.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Because
agree.
Smith Marset offers you that kick return, punt return. Him and
Mm-hmm.
Blackshear do. So it's kind of like being able to do that gives you a leg up on, I mean, I guess Tompkins can do it too, but I mean, I think we saw what Smith Marset can do. You already know what you kind of have, the ability
Yeah,
wise.
yeah. And if nothing else, like just to have that ability waiting in the wings, like
Mm-hmm.
in case, right? And he's played some wide receiver. And, he talked about himself, like he thinks he's a receiver first and a returner second. So, um, I hope he gets an opportunity. But yeah, I mean, uh, offensively, I don't really see anything else surprising, and even defensively, I mean, everything's sort of as expected.
Yeah, 100% par for the course. I don't see anything jumping out that I was shocked about, especially
Yeah.
with the way I think if before training camp the Jonathan Mingo would have surprised me, but with camp 2 weeks in now and all the reports of him being so dominant,
Hmm.
I'm not surprised. So
Yeah, I guess that really would be the only one that you might raise your eyebrows at if you weren't paying attention, right?
yeah,
But and now with Legette's injury, like it just that's probably the way it was going to be, right? Anyway, so yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of reason to waste time talking about this
depth
depth
chart.
chart. Yeah, there's just
I
no
I had
real.
to add it to our
Yeah, I mean it came out, but it is just Shaq Thompson. He wasn't going to be a backup.
yeah
Derek Brown has looked incredible in camp. I think Derek Brown's going to have a
Pro Bowl type of caliber
maybe
season.
like an All Pro type of year. Like he's just looking really really strong. Um,
And he has a good running mate with him, Ashawn Robinson. Oh man, that and Shaitel.
yeah.
I'm that D line, like those three.
Hmm.
That's pretty nasty, man.
Yeah, yeah. That could be pretty tough on the offensive lines and running games, things like that. So, all right. What's next here? We want
Uh,
to kind of discuss
uh,
preseason week one.
yeah, we're gonna discuss preseason week one. We will touch on camp confidence stock after the game because it's not really fun to do it before the game.
Yeah, and if you forgot, that's where we kind of ranked these guys 1 to 10, and what our confidence was in them. So yeah, I agree with Jerry. After week one's preseason game, we'll revisit that. But preseason game week one for the Panthers. I mean, again, it's unfortunate that we're not going to see any of Bryce. We're probably not going to see a lot of the starting offensive line. we may not see a lot of the starters regardless, right?
Yeah.
Defensive or offensive. So really here we're just looking at these backups. Who's the one guy that you're excited to see that you expect to have a lot of time in the game?
There's two of them, and both are
Okay.
rookies. Non-surprising, Jatavion Sanders.
He's one
I,
of mine.
I expect to see a lot of him. I think they're gonna try to focus on him on offense, and Trevin Wallace.
Hmm.
I've been hearing some good things about him. Just basically that he's slowly getting it, and he was not a top tier pick, so that makes it. But he's so fast, and they said that, or I believe it was Canales said that you could tell he's getting it when he's just lightning. He's just there.
Yeah.
He plays so fast and loose. He's like, but you could tell sometimes he's still thinking about it too much. That he
Mm.
still needs to get it down. So I'm excited to see him because I think if he can get it, I think he could be a very fun linebacker for us in the future.
Yeah, no, I like that. My other one outside of Sanders was going to be Terrace Marshall Jr.
Mm.
I'm just hoping that I see a spark from him, and that we get some consistent play. But again, when you're looking at who's going to be throwing him the ball, like I just don't know what 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 to take away.
Yeah.
Outside of just he's running good routes and he was open, but the ball didn't get to him. That kind of thing. But I'm hoping that Plummer or Luton can at least make those throws against third and fourth string defenses.
Honestly, I'm gonna add Plummer into mine because a
Okay.
six
Yeah.
five guy quarterback. He was a high priority undrafted free agent, so I kind of want to see what he's got.
Yeah.
Canals kind
Sure.
of talked him up a good bit in an interview I read, and obviously he's gonna talk all the guys up. He's not a
I
knocker.
haven't heard him. Yeah, I haven't heard him say. The most negative thing I've heard him say was, we just need to work on a little more consistency. Things like that. It's about as negative as he gets,
Yeah.
which is fine.
I'm also curious if Icky will play. I think the rest of the O line won't play, but Icky is the only one I could think of that would actually be forced to start, just because he hasn't had a good camp either.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting to kind of note because if all of the other starters are not going to play and you're going to put him out there, that says something,
Mm-hmm.
right? That says something. So, not that if he sits, it says something else, right? I would expect him to sit if everyone else is sitting, but if he's out there, that's worth clocking for sure.
Yeah. Um. Anybody else you're kind of looking forward to on the Panther side?
I mean, I guess, DJ Johnson, we kind of talked about him a little bit. And then Amari Barno, just some of these edge rushers. I'm hoping to see somebody do something that excites me. Somebody get to the quarterback consistently. You know,
We're not that type of podcast. You can text your wife.
I'm just saying, I really want to be excited by these guys. Okay. Yeah. I mean, in terms of the Panthers, that's
Yeah.
probably about it. But yeah, we're playing the New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of camp battles that those guys are having that could be interesting to watch as well.
Yeah. I'm actually really looking forward to see Drake May. I really liked him coming out of college from North Carolina, but supposedly he has looked rough. Where that they said that the later round pick quarterback out of Tennessee, Jeff Milton,
Hmm.
has looked better than him. Jacoby Brissett's probably gonna start, which okay, most teams aren't starting their starters, but if they want to do that, that's what
Sure.
they want to do. But I'm excited to see Drake May, kind of see if what I'm reading is actually gonna show up, especially against our secondaries, our backup secondaries.
Right. Yeah. I'm excited to see Drake May as well. I don't care to see Jacoby Brissett. I've seen Jacoby
Yeah,
Brissett many times.
he is what he
Um,
is.
yeah. But the other guy, Milton, I'm excited to see both of those guys. I think just from what I've heard in camp, I've heard the exact same thing that you've heard, that May has just not looked as ready as they had hoped he was going to be.
Yeah.
And Interesting.
But
Interesting.
that's why you bring in a Brissett.
Of course, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that way if you need to start him, you start him and you let Drake learn behind him. But that'll be a very fun watch, quarterbacks. I mean, usually around sometime in the second half of us start checking out mentally. So I'll be interested how much he plays.
Yeah.
Wide receiver. I mean, they've got some names here that are on the bubble. Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton, Jalen Rager, and Keyshawn Boot. I really like Boot coming out of college, out at LSU. I thought he was a good kind of late day 2, day 3 pick. Like, I think he was a third round pick. He was a couple years ago. So that'll be kind of interesting down the line who actually makes that role.
Yeah.
So,
And you got Rager, I think he was a first round pick, right?
he was. Juju Smith-Schuster.
Schuster's had a lot of success. And Thornton, also another just, guy who people were excited about at one point. So, yeah, that's a good look as well. Finally here, offensive tackle on both sides hasn't looked great. You've got Okafor and Wallace over there. Um, so can our defensive
That
guys get a little bit of penetration and maybe because those tackles aren't looking good, give our guys a little bit of confidence, right?
No, 100%. That's kind of why I added this one. I mean, Caden Wallace is a rookie, so it's not crazy to think he's struggling a little bit in the beginning of this training camp. But with our defensive line being, or our edge rushers being where it's at, and Clowney not playing, Wanham not playing, can DJ Johnson make some moves? Can Amari Barno make some moves? Like,
yeah, agreed. Either way, it's going to be fun to watch. We got Panthers football coming, and I'm watching all 4 quarters. I don't care.
oh, I will be too. I mean,
I'm watching all four
my
quarters.
Sylvia, my wife, will be very upset. Be like, "Why are you still watching this?" Because I am.
Yeah, we'll do our recap. Probably not that night, but we'll try to get it to you maybe that Friday afternoon at some point, and tell you what we saw.
Yeah. We want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at Meowmix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. If you leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on our show. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and comment as well. I was so sad my solo had 0 comments. I'm just saying. I was kind of sad.
Let's get those comments going. Let's get the conversation
I should have said
started,
something
guys.
controversial. Like,
all right, and like I said, we'll be back later this week or maybe weekend to discuss the preseason week 1 game. Until then, everybody stay safe out there and keep pounding.